All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. So, today we are going to be talking about the entire WISP Prime Access. WISP is out and her Prime Access is pretty good. And I need to do a build refresh for her, of course, anyway, as the build is updated, and we're going to be talking about everything that goes with that. The update in general is that we're doing the same thing, but much better, in that we are going with Pillage WISP. Pillage WISP, very good because removing all armor from the map while giving yourself shields turns out is pretty good. And she is one of the Warframes that wants to build for those stats anyway, so it's highly beneficial. In addition to that, in terms of Archon shards, I have slapped on 5 just armor Archon shards onto her. She already gives herself a lot of health, and slapping the armor on top of that gives her a ton of EHP. On this build, these 5 regular armor shards, not Tau, take her EHP from what is usually a little over 50k to a little over 100,000. So, doubling your EHP is pretty good. WISP is one of the best candidates for slapping on the Azure shards that you will probably have extra, as most frames can't really make much use of them. But it is notable that it is also valid to go like very hard into strength shards. Putting like all Tau strength on her has a few different benefits, and you can like remove mods or put different mods here and there in spots, and get more efficiency or get more of this or that, or switch out arcanes if you do that. But for my build, which is this, those 5 blue shards are doing more than fine. This build is it's a pillage build. We're going high strength, we're at 276, and then Molt Augmented will give us the other 60, so that we're going to be at 328. 328 strength is the amount that you need for pillage to reach 82% armor stripping on one cast. Corrosive Projection gives us the other 18% for a 100% armor strip. That 100% armor strip will make it so that there's basically no enemies that are going to be able to live through our weapons fire. It's just not going to happen. And then with that, this is a full Umbral build. This is a 2 Umbral Forma build. You can knock off one of the Umbral Forma on that by just using an unranked Umbral Fiber, which you can get from Samaris. I will note, this does lower your survivability, of course. Takes you down to 76% DR from the 81%, which does matter, but is not like an insanely large difference. So if you only want to use one Umbral Forma on this build, that's fine and good. Just get an unleveled Umbral Forma from Samaris and just run it anyway. It's not going to be like insanely worse or something crazy like that. In addition, this is using Fused Reservoir. I like Fused Reservoir. It's nice. It's convenient. It's chill. Just put down one thing and move on. You can change this if you want to. If you don't feel like you want to use Fused Reservoir, or like it's not convenient for you or whatever, it is a mod slot that's really not doing much here, but she kind of has an open one. If you wanted to put something else here, you can. If this like energy economy is not comfortable for you, that can be streamlined. If you want like a little more strength so that you hit that armor strip much faster than like the full 250 kills on Molt Augmented, you could just go with like the Augur mod, for example. Just Augur Strength there, Augur Secrets. If you, for whatever reason, wanted more range, you could go for Augur Reach, of course, or Duration. Just one of the Augur mods, one of the just generally good mods. If you feel like you need a more energy cap, you could go Primed Flow there if you wanted to. Although I believe you will have to at least unlevel Umbral Fiber in order to include that, even with the 2 Umbral Forma we have here, as this does use a lot of high-cost mods. But yeah, there's a lot of options for this if you don't want to use Fused Reservoir. I personally like it, though. Adaptation, 90% damage resistance. Turns out it's really good, so that's what that is here for. Blind Rage, because we're trying to hit these caps. And then Archon Stretch. So Archon Stretch is particularly good on Wisp because her little electric node, or moat rather, zaps enemies constantly. And that does do electric damage. So you're basically, as long as you are using your 1, which I sure hope you are, your Wisp, you're going to be getting 2 energy generated per second. I basically am using Archon Stretch instead of Streamline in this build, because the range is, of course, a boon for both Pillage and, of course, for Breach Surge, and is honestly not unhelpful on Reservoirs. And it's basically giving me the same amount of benefit that I would get from Streamline, if not more in some cases. So that 2 energy per second is actually pretty good. This is one of the few frames that can use it, and is arguably the frame that can use it the best, besides maybe Gyre. But that is even maybe a little questionable, as this costs you no energy for the vast majority of the time that it is generating you energy. So yeah, really good stuff overall. We, of course, have Prime Sure-Footed so that we are completely immune to knockdowns. This is also optional. It's usually not going to be a big deal on this build if you do get knocked down, because most things can't kill you. And then we are, of course, using Energize. I haven't found Energize to be particularly necessary on this build, but of course it is always nice. You could replace this with more survivability or like Blessing if you want a hilarious amount of health. This is just another 1200 health you can put on here if you wanted to. There's a few other options. And then notably, if you do decide to go with the Strength Shards instead of the Armor Shards, in this slot you have some other options that are funny, which is, like going for like, where's it at? Going for like Avenger to get that 45% flat crit on all your weapons, Aegis for more survivability, Blessing once again for a bunch of health. Though I will say, if you don't go with the armor shards, you definitely don't want to go with Blessing. You'd actually be much better served because you want more armor with something like even Arcane Guardian. But yeah, so yeah, balancing out the armor and health levels so that you're just really good stuff overall. Yeah, just super survivable. Really, heavy on the support, giving all your teams, of course, all the benefits of Reservoirs, very good. And then Pillage, stripping armor from the entire map is amazing. Breach Surge on this build, we have a 5.5 damage multiplier on that, so this is also not a low amount of damage and is crowd control. And then Will-O-the-Wisp is here. A teleport when you need it, I guess, and invisibility on call if you're like hacking or something, but not a huge deal. Besides that, basic stuff to go through. Let's go through the Fallman. This is just really normal stuff for the Fallman. I'm using Galvanized Scope on it, which has been pretty nice. You could go with Shred on this if you wanted to, but it does have that infinite enemy punch through just regularly. Really not partial one way or another. Because I'm using it with Wisp, there's definitely a way stronger argument for Galvanized Scope as opposed to going with Shred. And this has performed pretty well for me. I do just have this on Serration, as the Fallman Prime is not that much stronger than the regular Fallman. It is like pretty like 1-to-1 comparable. In terms of how good it is, and its MR requirement is much higher. Realistically, if what you're going to be doing with this weapon is circuit, you'll be happy with it. You'll be like, the Fallman Prime showed up. That's a good circuit weapon. But by and large, if you are looking to use a weapon like this, you are instead going to want to still go for the Tend Archiplasmor, which is just much, much stronger. Partially because it gets to use much stronger mods, and partially because it is just literally a better weapon anyway. But yes, yeah, Tended Archiplasmor, still the much better version of the Fallman, but this is a mid-step, I guess, if you can't get the Tended Archiplasmor or don't want to for whatever reason, and it's good. Besides that, of course, we have the Gunson. The Gunson, in terms of upgrades, is a little more severe. There's a pretty considerable damage bump here, and then a crit buff and all that good stuff. The main downside to the Gunson is really that the Quasix exists. The Quasix is a really, really good war fan that has a unique heavy attack that procs a ton of slash. And that's very hard to beat, especially because it is also a projectile that does that. But war fans are decent. They have like a pretty reasonable stance, which notably there's some new quality of life for that. You can actually see what the stances do now in terms of their attack modifiers, and also if they proc slash, which of course this is the heavy attack and it procs slash 3 times. So yeah, Warfan's pretty good. You can see what they do now. So hey, that's also a heads up in the new update. Yeah, this is just a pretty regular build here. I have Drifting Contact on here still. Of course, normally, if you were really going to focus on using a melee weapon, you would run like one of your Dexterity Arcanes on one of your guns. That's not so much a problem here. Because I'm running this on Wisp, I'm just throwing in Gladiator Might and then not using my attack speed mod, so you're going to get pretty much the performance that you'd see. Because an attack speed mod would pretty much always have to be here. But I'm using Wisp's attack speed instead, so the Gunson will be pretty much just normal, how it would normally perform with just a regular build whenever we're showing it off in the mission, and of course in the sim as well. Yeah, that's pretty much what's up. In terms of like cosmetically for Wisp, I know a lot of people were wondering this. So I am using her Coven skin. If you just want to see the Wisp Prime regular, it looks like this. I think she looks really nice, very nice. And then throw the Coven skin back on. And then besides that, though, under attachments, so her Wisp Prime Shroud, that is removable solo, and you can have the same helmet without it. So that is as we expected, is that this is an auxiliary piece that you can turn on and off. Personally, I like it, but it is toggleable for anyone who was wondering. But yeah, that's what's up with that. And then in terms of showing off on these enemies, we'll just like show survivability first and foremost. Keep in mind, I'm not at like full strength with this. I'm missing 60% of my power strength, so there is a bit of health missing and such like that. But generally speaking, if you're like even like semi-active, Like, these are level, what, 195 heavy gunners that are steel pathified? If you just let them shoot you, like, you're in a little bit of danger, but the moment you, like, start playing, it's pretty much, like, it doesn't really... They don't really get much of it. Yeah, it pretty much goes away, all threat, whenever you actually begin playing, especially if you're actually just, using your abilities as Wisp, which is a fairly low bar. You can see the Fulman here, able to kill these enemies even when they still have their armor. But it's not, it's not an easy, it's not like it's not like the Torrid Incarnate, or something of that nature. Come on, there we go. Yeah, eventually gets through just with Hunter Munitions, because Hunter Munitions is amazing. And then if we look at the Gunson, the Gunson are pretty much not going to do anything here, without me, doing something else to go with it. So, like, in terms of just regular fighting, there's not much to be done. One armor strip in, though, and things are much better, right? This is just stripping, like, about 60% of their armor, and things go much better that way. Of course, if you remove all their armor, this weapon then suddenly looks amazing. But, like, that's because I'm stripping all of their armor, which is why we go with Pillage. But yeah, the Gunson work quite well, pretty much as well as you could expect of the war fans. They do have a good amount of slash damage. They're weighted that way. And yeah, it's good stuff overall. Also, the Gunson look really impressive if you use her 3 with it, because, of course, that is giving you a damage multiplier and hitting a bunch of times. But yeah, overall, good stuff. Easily able to take, like, just the full kit from this PA into Steel Path. It is worth noting that I wanted to show, just a much better weapon in this. So I've chosen the Furus Incarnate. This is not a weapon that I've shown off in a builds video yet. It will get its own builds video. Basically, the build looks like this, though, is like the TLDR. And this is one of the, like, I would say mid-tier Incarnates, so I wanted to show that as compared to these Prime Access weapons, so you can get a feel for just how good they are or not good they are. Okay, just charge this real quick. Pop this on, and this is without armor stripping, just with the Wisp buff on from her 1. Yeah, so whenever we're comparing, like, how good the Furus is and all that stuff versus, like, the Fulman and the Gunson, like, this is what we're talking about. This is like a mid-tier Incarnate. So if you're looking at those types of weapons is what you're, like, generally going to be using, like, if you're checking out the Latum and using, like, the Fel Arcs and all of those, like, much stronger or tool-oriented weapons, the Fulman and the Gunson can't super compete, but they're not awful. They're definitely not bad weapons. And the Fulman, the regular Fulman at the very least, classically, is a thing that can give really easy access to getting into Steel Path with a frame like Zephyr. So, yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy with it. I wasn't expecting the Fulman to be, like, better than the Tenet Archiplasma. I was just kind of hoping it was at least as good. But, a mid-step is fine. And war fans are fun. Anyway, let's jump into a little bit of Steel Path. Yeah, Wisp Prime good. Wisp Prime good. One last thing before we jump into the Steel Path stuff, I wanted to show off the new Transference suit. I'm using 3 pieces of it here. Obviously, I have, like, Prime Armor, like, on top of it. I think this suit is really nice. This is also the Sindana that comes with this PA, which I also think is very nice. So yeah, this is the armor set. Just to slap the hood on real quick for those of you to see it. This is how the hood looks open, if you were curious. I think it's pretty solid. I do prefer the Saita Prime instead, but, that's a whole different thing. But yeah, so yeah, it's a nice hood. I think, like, even closed, it's pretty nice. Like, if you're, a closed helmet user, I think it's one of the good ones. So yeah, that's not bad. And I think it fashions really well. It colors really, really nicely. I will note there's a weird thing in terms of it, though. You see this little spot here on it? That is the only part of this color. Nothing else on the whole suit changes. So it is a, like, basically 2-color suit where it has, like, the lining color, which is the gold, and then it has its main piece color, which you can see is all this purple, and then everything else you see on it that is black is all the secondary color. So it's really only a primary, secondary, and then a metallic. The tertiary color is just the elbows, and I think, like, maybe the backs of the knees as well. So it's very minor. I still think that it colors very well and looks really good. So it's not really a complaint for me, but it is, like, a note if you were looking into this operator armor. I think it's really good, though. Looks really great on the Drifter, and I will probably be using it quite a bit in the foreseeable future. Anyway, moving on, let's do Steel Path stuff. But yeah, pretty gonna be pretty easy stuff here. I mean, I am Wisp. Slap our one down. Obviously, after you build your full 250 stacks, you're gonna want to re-slap your one down to get all the other benefits out of that: higher healing, more health, so on and so forth. But generally speaking, this is gonna be pretty easy. We're gonna start using the Fulmin. Which performs pretty well. Especially whenever it has lower level enemies to build up on, it looks a lot better. Because you're gonna get that full merciless much sooner. We'll say one of the big downsides here is, like, even though this weapon does have unlimited ammo and, like, you know, doesn't have to reload, the recharge is still just slow enough that you're gonna feel like there's a lot of downtime pretty often. But if you pace yourself, you know, it does, like, have unlimited quote unquote ammo. This is, of course, much lower steel path levels. Obviously, whenever we were in the simulacrum, I'm testing it, you know, basically level 200 with some of the strongest enemies that can spawn in. We're not even seeing corrupted here. And I think in most steel path, you're not going to be seeing the corrupted, really. Like, I mean, it kind of, well, I guess it kind of depends. Because, like, you'll see them in circuit, but in circuit, there's so many other factors to consider. Where, like, your weapons are going to be buffed so much beyond, like, their normal performance and all that business that it's not really the same thing. Like, in that stuff, we're expecting, you know, to see level 1,000 enemies, which is not the case for pretty much any other usual content. And then you can see these enemies, like, pretty much incapable of hurting me as long as I'm playing. Obviously, if I just let them kill me, then they probably will, especially a Blitz Eximus like that one, as they are quite strong. But yeah, there's not anything too crazy here. Notably, if you do get a bunch of slash procs on you, one of the other nice things about Village, and it's easy to forget about, I find, is that it is a status purge. So it will clean all the status off of you if things are bad. Like if you don't want those blast procs or whatever, they're just gone now. The moment you hit the button, all the procs go away. So like if a Blitz Eximus gets a bunch of heat procs on you, you're immune to knockdowns with Prime Sure-Footed, so you can just immediately get rid of all the heat procs. And it is not a problem. Won't be cutting into you for long at the very least. Yeah, good stuff overall. We're at 250 now, so if we put this down, you can see we're up over 2,000 health now, which is a good chunk more. We're also at 250, which means now every time we hit R4, it is a full armor strip for every single enemy that it affects, which is just insanely good. This is one of the things that also is going to make it so that Wisp is just like, you know, an incredible support in circuit in particular. Obviously, she's not really in her own rights just like a DPS, and that's because her 4 just doesn't scale well enough for that. But, you know, if you get into a circuit run and you're with a Mesa or, you know, well, again, not that Mesa needs much help. Maybe someone who's not on such an optimal build for Mesa, though. Or, you know, someone else has a good gun, or, like, you know, it's a couple Revenants or whatever. Really, armor stripping the whole map is going to make your run so much smoother on Steel Path, because even when they're level 1,000, the difference between them having armor or not, or, well, maybe even more so, I should say, when they're level 1,000, is even more impactful the higher level the enemies get. You just always want them to have no armor. So it's just always useful. And the extra shields don't hurt either, because we're getting 1,500 shields, and that'll usually have 90% DR from adaptation, and that's, you know, put us at like another 15,000 EHP, which can't complain about. Actually, a bit more than 15,000 because the shields do have that 25% inherent DR, but let's not get caught in the weeds on that. Anyway, let's use the Gunstun a little bit now, especially with like the full armor strip. These are going to look, you know, like a knife through butter. We have the block combo on here, which can give us some good speed through a map, just part of, you know, this stance being good. Block combo really good for mobility. Oh, and the heavy attack should make short work of this Acolyte, too, which will be nice. If the heavy attack doesn't make short work of this Acolyte, we've always got the armor strip, too. heavy attack and then a little bit of, you know, a little bit of regular attack. Oh, whoop. Whoops. We traded. Whatever. Doesn't really matter. Normally against enemies like that, you'll be using a better weapon than, like, seeing how the melee performs on them. Like, realistically, I probably should have just heavy attacked him and then left him, because the slash proc should have finished him off, but whatever. Really not a big deal either way. Or I could have armor stripped him, and then just that probably would have killed him outright. Yeah, just cutting through these crowds. Now that I don't have as much strength, you can actually see, like, the partial strip into the Gunston and how that goes. Which it goes quite well. I mean, honestly, like, war fans have a good enough stance that, like, you know, you're seeing this do pretty well, even just against these regular dudes. Like, it does cut through them pretty well, and the stance is good. And this is really, I don't know, it depends on how much you've used melee weapons lately, I suppose. But it really, the difference between a good melee stance and a bad one is pretty drastic. And of course, the stats on the Gunston don't hurt, but if your stance has good mobility and then good multipliers, and then of course procs a lot of slash, it really is night and day in terms of how good it is, especially through armor. Clap down. Oh, also, I think it's worth noting is I might talk about this a little bit more, but maybe not. The new damage numbers. You can see the way damage numbers are displayed on screen. They kind of stick to me whenever I'm using melee, and they are also so clear now. Because we talked about this like before it released. I think they did a really good job with the new damage numbers. It is now so easily readable exactly how much damage you're doing. And also, like, the different types of damage and such. Like, obviously, I don't have it here. Well, I guess I do have it here because I have the 3. Whenever the 3... Oh, no, the 3 are still yellow numbers and stuff. You can see some of, like, the ability damage I'm getting, like, off of my 1, though. You can see, like, the electric damage happen. That, like, that blurple color. That is really nice for, like, just, like, telling what any given thing is doing. I feel like the damage numbers are so readable now. They might be a little on the large side. I might give them, like, a little 10% reduction in size. But with this update, that also gave us that, so, you know, should be pretty good. Overall, I think this Prime Access is definitely a solid one. I like all the cosmetics in it. WISP Prime herself, obviously, she's very good. WISP Prime, really not very different than the regular, like, pretty much, you know, imperceptibly different, really. And then the Prime weapons themselves are at least solid. And, like, we weren't expecting them to be world-shattering. Though I would really like it if we got back in the groove of the Prime weapons having, like, a special gimmick. Especially for weapons that, like, aren't going to get an Incarnon, like the Fulman. Because the Fulman has an alt-fire. And as far as we've seen, weapons that already have alt-fires can't get Incarnons. Which I guess could theoretically change, but, you know. Probably won't, at least not for the foreseeable future. Yeah, the damage numbers being much more clear, though, is something that I am definitely a fan of. Oh, whoops. I meant to do a finisher to him for laughs. There we go. Plow through all these guys very easily. Yeah, generally speaking, though, like, I feel like I would use the Gunston just for fun because, like, it's good enough. But the Fulman, I'm pretty much always gonna use the Tenet instead. You can see there, if I just leave him alone, should die. Yeah, there we go. It turns out you don't need to just like smack your face into the Acolyte and give them an opportunity to kill you. You can also just walk away after hitting them with a big slash proc. That also works well. Oh, and it's just about time to get out of here. But yeah, really happy with this PA. I did buy this PA just to like, while we're getting out of here, just to talk about like why that is, because I don't talk about like my philosophy with this very often. Generally, I will buy PAs just whenever it seems like DE is like really like going in and doing like a lot of really good updates. And honestly, like Duviri and like our Culervo update and this update have all been like really nice quality of life features, really good new features, and like, you know, good Warframe stuff, good cosmetics on like the Prime Accesses and all that business. I feel like DE is really just like going super hard lately, and I am very excited for TennoCon. What about the PA? Yeah, it's a very good one. It's a very good one. Good stuff overall. Yeah, that's going to do it. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this. Yeah, let me know in the comments if you guys... I'm curious if you guys do the Umbral build thing, because it's good on a number of Warframes, but I don't know how many people are even like regularly farming the Umbral Forma that we get access to. So let me know. Let me know, because I am curious about that. Also, to be curious to see how many people will even answer that question, because this is the end of the video. All right. Hello, everyone. It's been month 2 of the Streamathon, but more YouTube videos are on the way. And for that, thanks especially to all of the patrons that are supporting the channel: Alex Parnham, Angel SPM, Arbiter Daydream, Benuvin, Brutus Salazar, Dylan Dworsky, Ethrain, Hafan, IQ is Thick, James Harsthorn, JC4 Science, Jesse Richens, John Lobdill, Joshua Adams, Luzanth, Alec X Williams, Minty Ginja, Mitchtup, Vermoxidate, Rena Valentine, Tamarilic Wastelander, The Coupon of Death, Waifu Wars, Zach Zaner, and Zerafir, and of course, all of the $5 patrons and the $2 patrons as well. Thank you very much, everyone, for the support. It has been incredible. There are so many of you now. And yeah, expect a lot more videos and stuff after the Streamathon is over. We're going to get way back into the free-to-play through and the huge guides that I've been trying to write for the site and everything. So expect a lot of that to be going on in the near future.